Bartnowski, publisher of Yankee News, coming to you live from the world-famous and very noisy Parkway Diner in Stamford, Connecticut on this Monday, June 24th, the year of our Lord 2024. So, I don't know how loud I have to speak to get Willem to listen to me, but if I keep trying, okay. Anyway, just kidding. So, first of all, calls to action, go to yankeet.news, like, subscribe, donate, buy our stuff, tell everybody, and of course, Sally Fink. She's always stepping up to the plate. She's THECTLTRIBUNE.com, the Continental Tribune. Visit, like, subscribe, donate, and tell the universe. And don't forget, donate to the Bob McGuffey for Congress campaign. There it is. And tonight's theme. So we were having a little debate, Eric and I maintain that this week is really about a lot of different parties around the world taking tremendous chances. Hence the theme, Brinksmanship, the week of Brinksmanship. Brinksmanship here in Ukraine, in the Philippines, in China, it goes on. So I just want to mention that we added a link here to an X tweet that is, I think, the perfect metaphor for everything we were talking about. If you go look at that, you're going to, some of you may have seen, it was in the news yesterday, a funny car race where everything went horribly wrong for one of those cars. Exploded into flames, crashed into a wall, rolled down the road, turned over, hit the other side, had even more flames, and you're looking at this thing, and the car was just shattered. It was shattered. To think that the guy could have survived that, how is it even possible? But he did. Nonetheless, this what happened to that car is what is potentially going to happen to a lot of people if they don't watch out. All right, so let's deal with the first element of brinkmanship. That would be our friends in the state of Connecticut. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to rip them off real quick here. Cannabis, the Connecticut Bar Association, nursing students getting shut out, Stamford Middle School and other schools out of control, and the decay, that might be the better term, the decay of emergency response services in small towns around Connecticut. Okay, in the case of cannabis, you have this thing called the Social Equity Council. The article, of course I put it up, you should go read it, but it's more an extended piece on who's getting the money, really. I have a different way of looking at this, and I'll sum it up as this. There's the old Latin phrase, cui bono, who benefits? Well, this time, the term is qui conquit, or qui conquit, which means who is silenced, okay? The same communities that are being negatively impacted by the growing use of cannabis are the same ones receiving this money from the dispensaries from around the state as well as in their own neighborhoods. So they're going to take the money and they're going to shut up about the negative impacts of cannabis on their communities. So there you have it, positive development. Meantime, the Connecticut Bar Association, you may remember last week we talked about how they were basically telling lawyers in Connecticut about Trump's ruling, shut your mouth. Don't you say a thing, shut your mouth. That was the Connecticut Bar Association. Now, they know what the limit is as to how much they can say, but they said enough to make people look at them and say, what's wrong with these people? So one of the conservative columnists in Connecticut, Kevin Rennie, has also weighed in on this, and he made the point that the Connecticut Bar Association has done this before in other cases that did not, shall we say, play well to liberals in Connecticut. It's disgusting and it's a shame, and it just shows you how biased the Connecticut Bar Association is in this state. Meantime, something that's a little bit more troubling, and I'm not sure I really understand this. So the title is Thousands of Qualified Nursing Applicants Can't Get into Programs in Connecticut. So get ready for this. So there are lots of nursing programs in community schools and other places around the state. Number of rejects, those who couldn't get in, 8,000, okay? 8,000 people who wanted to be nurses, rejected. Why? Why? Well, guess what? We ain't got room for them. So what's going on here? It just seems that following COVID, there's been this tremendous surge in the number of people who want to get into nursing. Okay, and none of these programs are able to handle this surge that's flooding through their doors. So you have these people, and it doesn't even matter if they have good grades. I mean, the competition is so bad, people with top grades can't even get in. Go check it out. Now, there was an event that happened at a place in Stamford, Connecticut, the Turner River Middle School. Now, there have been some takes on this, but at the very least, the level of violence that took place at this school a couple of weeks ago makes very clear that the administration, the system for public education is going from failure to failure to failure, and each time is getting worse. And so now you have this. I mean, kids misbehaving in schools are as old as news as can be. But there's a sense that the degree of conflict, if you will, and disorder is getting out of control. And I want to add that Sally Fink in the Continental Tribune had a similar story about what's happening at Hamden High School. So she's been following events there. So there are at least two takeaways that I want you people to keep in mind based upon these stories. The first is that you have too many parties, whether you're talking about the teachers, the administrators, the parents, politicians. Too many people seem to be afraid to deal with this, in part because they're concerned about allegations of racism, which are false, but also this issue of discipline. What constitutes an appropriate level of discipline in these schools? So you'll find, I mean, I'll maybe post it up later, but there are other articles coming out that are talking about we got to get tough on kids. There was a time when we didn't let them get away with this. This is not turning the clock back. This is not being somehow more primitive in how we think. It's just common sense, but we can't seem to get there, and we need to get there. So Connecticut, wake up. Meantime, that's right, corruption gets a pay raise. And where else could it go to get that pay raise than Bridgeport, Connecticut? Maybe a few others, but the rewards are wonderful in Bridgeport. So this story is cast in the colors, if you will, of unions and contracts and renegotiation. Yeah, but at the end of the day, you have people who have broken the law in one form or another, whether they've been caught yet or not. For Mayor Joe Ganim, and he gets a pay raise, they get a pay raise, and they go on their happy way. It's disgusting. Yeah, so I just had to share that with you too. Now, here's another thing. All right, some of you may have heard this phrase. Get ready for it. You ready? Inherent contempt. You can be held in contempt, or you can be held in inherent contempt. So in the news, we have one of the congressional representatives, that would be Anna Paula Luna from Florida, who has made it very clear that she's going to force a floor vote on charging MERRICK Garland with inherent contempt. Now, a number of people in and outside of Congress have been scratching their heads because they're going, well, what, inherent contempt? I don't get it. Well, it turns out it's a concept. It's a part of the thinking of Congress. And as it says here, the first time any ruling of vote for inherent contempt was done was back in the 1930s. And if you want to find another example, you'd have to go back to the early 1800s. So think of it as an arcane concept, but it's the recognition that members of the government who are supposed to play by the rules are not playing by the rules. So guess what? Their degree of contempt is inherent for the system, and they need to be brought to heel. So Alan and I had a big debate about this, and I'm not really sure. But the argument is that because of other constraints that are built in with respect to jurisdictions, MERRICK Garland will be just fine. I am disappointed that he won't be taking his meals in the jail in the basement of the Congress, but okay, well, we'll see where this leads to next. Nonetheless, it's interesting, and I wanted you to know about it. Okay, next is what we'll call the FLYNN Gambit. All right, the FLYNN Gambit. That would be General Flynn. And there are different levels. When it comes to what we'll call the real disinformation, there are different levels of confusion that can be introduced. So let's just deal with the first part first. The story is that a number of delegates to the convention from Arizona have conspired to throw the convention into chaos in an effort to derail Trump's nomination. All right, we'll take that information as given. But then the other part that gets thrown into this is that they're going to try to get Flynn picked as the nominee. Well, okay, we've seen strange things happen at political conventions before, but this one, you bet it takes the cake. These people are nuts, whoever they are. So nonetheless, have a look at this. Yeah, is it a deep state move? Possibly. You have people who are pretending that they're American First types. You know, I'm still figuring it out, but the important part is that this will be squashed like these other attempts, but it also predicts that there are going to be some other surprises at the convention. So it's called Get Ready. Meantime, our top story about brinkmanship, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, this is the one that made me think about brinkmanship in the first place. We got two events, and again, they are more closely related than they may seem. In the first case, you have the Communist Chinese seizing Philippine supply vessels, okay, in what they're calling the Coral Sea. Where did that name go? Here, the Ayungin Shoal, all right? All right. That's pretty cheeky, all right? You're boarding a foreign vessel. That is tantamount to, that's right, an act of war. Meantime, over in Crimea, we got something else going on that's got to make you wonder. All right, first of all, the source. You may know him, you may not. His name is Kim.com. So Kim.com is a rather controversial hacker and internet entrepreneur. So he has, he lives in New Zealand. He's been in trouble with the law multiple times for things that he's done. Eccentric. You could say that, a bit eccentric. That said, so he's the source, but he came out and suggested rather strongly that it was American military forces that directed I'm going to call it a mid-range missile attack against Crimea. They're called ATACMS. It's a type of ballistic missile. It can go about 300 kilometers. And the thing is that when we have the link, if you go look at it, show in the corner, there's a brief video clip of what appear to be people at a beach. So this drone that coordinated this attack with these missiles was launched at people on a beach in Sevastopol on Crimea. What's that all about? Well, the suggestion that the Americans engineered this and did everything but pull the trigger is suggesting that we have engaged in an act of war against Russia. Okay? So there you go. The Chinese getting crazy in Philippines, Americans getting crazy in Crimea. It's something to worry about. Okay, meantime, all right, you've probably heard the term the Great Replacement, right? It's the theory that the flooding of illegal aliens on the border is part of this effort to replace white folk. Now, that happens to be part of a larger set of conspiracies that we won't discuss here tonight, but here you go. So Louis C.K., of all people, who's a second-rate comedian, has sat down in an interview and suggested that the Great Replacement is real, and the reason for it is because America's success is simply not fair. That's it. It's all built around the concept of not fair. So for not fair, you're going to allow drug cartels to control the access of illegal aliens to come in this country, commit all kinds of crimes, and somehow, CK, that's going to make everything more fair. Boy, are you stupid. Wow. Anyway, have a read of the rest of this. If this is how people are really thinking, I mean, I'm going to use the word. I like to use it. Kakistocracy. Look it up. Kakastocracy. When you are being ruled by idiots and incompetents. Okay? And Louis C.K. is just a mouthpiece for him if this is what's going on. Now, as a bookend to this story, then you had James O'Keefe, who had the secret recording with the Disney executive who said, we're not hiring white people anymore. Okay, on the one hand, flooding with the people who are, quote, not white. And then on the other hand, saying, we're not going to hire white people. The two kind of go together, don't they? All right, now, the other thing that is a follow-on to this, which should concern us all right? You have the term, not a friendly migration. So, Brett Weinstein, who's a biologist, sat down with Tucker Carlson and talked about, among other things, this alleged Chinese camp of immigrants coming into America in the Darien Gap. Now, just so if you don't know, the Darien Gap represents a segment of land in Panama, I believe somewhere between 60 and 90 miles, in which there are no roads. Okay, there is no physical connection between South America, Central America, and North America, because in Panama, you have this area where there are no roads. So the stories have been told about all these illegal immigrants who are fighting their way through the swamps and jungles of the Darien Gap to get themselves to America. Okay, well, there's the other part of this. The non-governmental organizations, and especially the ones associated with the United Nations, have just, really pulled out all the stops to help these people get into the country. But Brett Weinstein's message to America is that these Chinese camps are set up separately. They avoid talking to anybody, and they are the vast majority of them are young, military-aged Chinese men. It is not a friendly migration. All right? I don't know how many times I've had to repeat this, and others have said the same thing. In every sense of the word, we're being invaded. This should be crystal clear. All right. Meantime, a quick comment. I call it the lost debate. So Thursday, Biden and Trump, oh, that's right, and Jake Tapper. It's going to be a three-way debate, not a two-way debate. And we can count on Jake Tapper to pull all kinds of crap. And, my message to Jake Tapper is, you have to keep one small thing in mind, Mr. Tapper. You creeps have pulled this crap before, all right, where you've set up and entrapped Republican candidates. There's one problem. Things have changed. The audience today is not the same as the audience that was 2, 3, 4 years ago, all right? We get it. We see what's going on. You're not fooling anybody. So every little stunt you pull, every little trick you try, we're going to see it, and we're going to know it for what it is, and it's going to backfire. Meantime, speaking of backfiring, so Hot Air did this article about Fauci. It just says, Fauci was just a symptom. Well, I wish to offer up a completely different interpretation for this piece. It's called the Fauci syndrome. Now, the way I'm going to handle the Fauci syndrome almost has nothing to do with COVID, okay? It has more to do with the fact that there's this illness that possesses people who are in positions of great power, and they lose all perspective, and truth means nothing to them. Control and getting what they want is all that it means. So check it out. Meantime, the trans superiority narrative. Again, just a quick comment on this. The idea that trans people are becoming, are getting special treatment. There is something called a protected class. We've had protected class laws in this country for some time now. I wish to offer that trans represent a super protected class, and it's super stupid. Now, the other part here, as I try to race through this, is that public educators in Minnesota are fighting the fact that 50% of their students do not read at grade level. 50% in the state of Minnesota. That's pretty pathetic. So here's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we're confronted with, and I'm going to read it. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, But those who cannot unlearn the many lies that they have been conditioned to believe and seek out the hidden knowledge that they have been conditioned to reject. What a mess, right? But we have no choice. We have no choice but to do these kinds of things and hope we get somewhere. Meantime, Victor Davis Hanson had a few comments about the 51 former intelligence officials who lied about Hunter Biden's laptop. Go check it out. And okay, so this is a reminder that this is going to be the big week because we're expecting a lot of critical decisions to come down from the Supreme Court, right? And I'll just point to two. One is the Chevron. If the ruling comes as we expect, this will be the first step to deconstructing the administrative state. This will be big. The other one, a little bit more confusing, is how they're going to rule on several social media cases. I don't have a comment for this yet because I'm not sure how to regard this, but hopefully sense will prevail. That's all I can say. And the last one, it's part of our continuing coverage of January 6th, is another ruling from the Supreme Court that already came out, and I'm just going to read these two short passages. They ruled that a jury must be unanimous in its findings on criminal convictions, and two, sentencing enhancements cannot be arbitrarily implemented by judicial fiat. Okay, and sure, people will be fighting that. And if this is going to be retroactive, I think that would be great. All right, so on that happy note, I'm done, and I will see you next week. Thank you very much.